All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of Monday, May 13th. We have a quorum, so I call us to order. And our first item of business is approval of the regular meeting minutes of April 22nd. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Any discussion? Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay. We have one item for consideration. Alderman Rainey, would you like to introduce this item?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Should we do the minutes? Yes. Thank you. P1 is ordinance 45019, granting a special use permit for a banquet hall, which we prefer to call event space, facility located at 619 Howard Street in the B3 Business District. The Zoning Board of Appeals and city staff recommend adoption of ordinance 45019, granting a special use approval for a banquet hall, Palm House Productions at 619 Howard Street in the B3 Business District. The applicant has complied with all zoning requirements and meets all of the standards for special use for this district. This is for introduction. And Madam Chair, I would like to request that the committee, I would like to request suspension of the rules and action tonight if nobody objects. I so move.
Second.
Okay.
And I believe the applicant, or at least members of the applicant's team are here.
Are here, okay. And I overlooked the fact that we do have one public comment. Fred Wittenberg, were you speaking to this item, or?
No,
Just
to the general counsel.
for this, maybe to the whole city council then? And oh, okay, because this is planning and development.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, okay, no problem. All right, would the applicant like to say anything about the proposed banquet facility?
Hi guys, how we doing?
Good evening.
Mohammed Al-Libani in India from Peckish Bay.
This is for the building across from Peckish. You would know me and my mom from Peckish. And Mohammed is our lovely partner in this project who is purchasing the building at 619 Howard Street. And we are looking to get the special use approved so that we can open the events venue across the street. Hopefully, being one of the larger event venues in Evanston, allowing people to have access to, something different and large scale without traveling into the city. We're super excited about the project, and we hope you guys are too. And I don't know if anyone has questions about it. So,
Thank you. So, any questions from the committee or comments? Alderman Fisk?
I absolutely support this. Good luck. And absolutely think it's great for Howard Street, so appreciate that. I hope we can get back to just making sure that there's a little bit more notice before that it's on the agenda for suspension of the rules so that we give the whole community notice. I know you've had meetings, so there's no problem with that. I mean, before we suspend the rules and...
I was really had very little communication for the last 2 weeks. I was out of town. I got home like close to midnight last night. So,
Right.
I'm sorry.
I understand, and I absolutely support, but
Pardon me?
I absolutely support, and I understand you were. I hope you had a lovely time. But I think just to make sure that we give the public the notice that we're going to be suspending the rules in advance, I think is important.
Okay. I agree. But I was in contact with many of my constituents before I left, and it was an extremely interesting, if I may speak, Madam
Sure,
Chair?
yes, go ahead.
It was a very interesting zoning board of appeals. I went with great trepidation. I have really never seen such a gleeful zoning board of appeals meeting where the members of the board were smiling and jovial, and they went around the dais very excited about this. And I was just very surprised at how pleased they were at this project. it's interesting that this is up the same night as the recycling center, because this is pretty much the same project that was being presented at the for the recycling center. And Mr. Eldabani, Dr. Eldabani, excuse me, sir, have you opened your event space in Savannah?
It's going to open up in about 3-4 weeks. Yes,
4
but
weeks.
we're already taking reservations,
Yeah.
and we have concerts booked and 10-12 weddings already, and some private events.
Very exciting. Anyway, so, I mean, we're lucky to have somebody who has 2 different spaces, so it's really interesting. And this building, if we don't hurry up and get started on this building on Howard Street, I think it's going to just collapse on itself. It's in such terrible shape, so pretty interesting.
Thank you for support.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the committee? So then, Alderman Fisk, are you okay with suspending the rules tonight? All right, okay. Then all in favor of ordinance, of introduction and suspension of the rules of ordinance 45-0-19, granting a special use permit for the banquet hall facility at 619 Howard Street, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Great, thank you. Good luck.
We appreciate it.
Okay. Then we have a couple of items for discussion, and we'll take them in 2 sections. The first one is whether to provide some direction to staff about whether we want to make some code amendments to allow for the creation of permanent sidewalk cafes in Evanston. So I welcome your comments. Alderman Wilson.
Assuming, of course, that the existing process would continue to be utilized for people who are choosing not to have permanent. So it seems like a good idea. A lot of these businesses continue to use the space year in, year out, and I think that'll give some certainty to both themselves, to the neighbors, to the staff in planning how the space is going to be used on a long-term basis. So it makes sense to me.
But the permanency part is actually affixing things to the city sidewalk. Yeah.
As it was opposed to, as it is now, you've got a lot of, much more temporary, things out there susceptible to strong winds, which we occasionally have. This, I think, would make it a more secure, stable environment on the sidewalks and allow for things like electricity power to be, not just kind of strung with extension cords. So I think it'll hopefully improve the safety and usability.
Alderman Fisk?
I agree with Alderman Wilson. I think the point of this is that the property will be restored in the event that the operator no longer has their restaurant open. A lot of our sidewalk cafes are fairly close to the street, so this will mean umbrellas aren't toppling over into the street and creating a hazard. People, I think, will accept that as a safety issue. So I'm absolutely in support of this. I know our staff has been working, and I don't know whether Johanna is. Oh, I'm sorry, Johanna. I always forget that you're up here. Could you just talk a little bit about what we would require then an operator to do in terms of restoring the property back?
Well, I'm going to make strong eye contact with Laura Biggs as well while I talk about this, but I think the staff was focused on making sure that everyone is aware that sidewalks have a certain lifespan, and when you do any kind of structural degradation, drilling holes, putting bolts in a sidewalk, that will shorten that life. And in order to make sure that we're getting the most out of our sidewalk and we're not missing an opportunity to have a safe walking environment in our downtown, that we would want the full restoration, not just a patch or a cutout of a square to create those extra edges, but full replacement if this permanent sidewalk cafe were to go away.
So from reading the cover memo, it seemed that one of the reasons to consider this was because we have restaurants that want to be able to operate year-round, and our current Sidewalk Cafe season is April 1st to November 1st, because an alternative to actually creating a permanent structure in the sidewalk would be to have year-round Sidewalk Cafe permits, so they could be, which is, I guess, the way that Chicago's handled it. Because I guess I'm a little reluctant to picture these kind of permanent obstructions in our sidewalk. So, Alderman Nguyen.
Well, I have a few concerns about that. I mean, I think they're delightful in the summer. They're great, and I think that's when we don't have to worry about snow and things like that. But I do worry a little bit about having something permanent up in the winter when it's not as easy to get around. So I'd like to understand better what the permanent part would be. Are we going to have permanent, like, areas, sort of the fenced-off area? Because there, I mean, are there any sidewalk? I think there's one that I know of that's up right now. So
No, there's several.
There's the city does not currently allow permanent affixed structures to sidewalks.
but if we did under this ordinance, then what is it that becomes permanent?
So one of the pieces of this would be to get direction on how we want to go forward and approve. So I think if we're going to permanently affix the recommendation here, or not the recommendation, the suggestion of something to be included in a long-term agreement or code change would be that a sidewalk cafe that's going to be have components permanently affixed to city property on the sidewalk, that it would return to council for approval. And so these could be anything from railings to umbrellas to tables or counters. If there's counters, I mean, there's lots of, if we just think generally about other sidewalk cafes that are in the world that have permanently affixed equipment to sidewalks, it could be something of that cafe's design, depending on how their windows open or don't open.
And I think those are delightful. I do have concerns about then what happens with snow removal in the winter if they're permanently fixed, and what happens with, I mean, all of the equipment. I mean, we have a number of our sidewalk cafes, which I patronize, are wonderful. They do make the rest of the sidewalk pretty narrow. But it's, it's for the summer, everyone's in a wonderful mood. But when it's winter, I do think about how difficult it is to get around on some of our sidewalks. And not all of our property owners properly clear the snow and ice.
Honored members of the committee, my name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. So Johanna and I worked together on this, and that was something we discussed quite a bit. Currently, it is the code, even in the downtown, that property owners are responsible for clearing the sidewalk that is adjacent to their property. And if somebody were to build an enclosure or block off a portion of the sidewalk, they would still be equally responsible. But during large snow events, or even during just some normal maintenance activities, we do have to access it as a city. We help out with snow loadouts when the snow gets to be a certain amount so that we can remove it around parking meters and things. And so the concern that we have is that although if you had an enclosure or an area that was blocked off, the owner would be responsible for removing snow or trash or anything within it, it would be one more thing for our own public works people to work around as they were trying to do normal maintenance in the downtown area. So for that reason, I think it's just something that has to be taken into consideration and accounted for as we move forward with, if we move forward with this type of program.
Have we had requests from the restaurant owners to have a permanent type of sidewalk cafe?
Yes.
Over the years, we've had businesses that have asked about being able to permanently affix things. We've also probably have equally as many requests for people who want to operate a cafe outside of April to November.
Right, yeah.
So Chicago has dealt with that, and they just adopted year-long requirements that address some of the, and they don't allow permanently affixed, but they do allow for the year-round cafes, and there are protocols for removal of furniture from the right-of-way in order to have the cafe.
So have we had issues with things that aren't permanently affixed that, I'm not aware of them, but perhaps I just haven't heard of the incidents? All right.
Well, we operate seasonal sidewalk cafes, essentially, so it is unusual, although not unheard of in this year, that you might have snow while there is stuff out. But the massive snow events that are generally occurring in January and February, there is no sidewalk furniture that's out there that's privately owned.
But I meant is during the regular season, have we had problems with the temporary railings and other things that are put out by our sidewalk cafe owners? Alderman Fisk.
Alderman Fisk, do you have a response there?
I'm nodding, yes, we have. They tend to migrate and looking for a little bit more room and a little bit more room and pushing the envelope so that it's very hard for pedestrians to get by. I know of at least 4 examples of that. And I guess the other thing I would say is I'd like you to think a little bit more on the European model. Switzerland, where I've spent a lot of time in the winter, as soon as the sun comes out, you go outside and you have your coffee. And I just see that as enhancing not only the pedestrian experience, but also the downtown. We don't clear sidewalks, though, in the downtown. That's the responsibility of each property owner. Is that correct, Laura?
It is the responsibility of each property owner, but if there is a very large snow where snow is starting to accumulate around parking meters and the curb, then we will assist. And we usually, our normal method is basically to push the snow to the end of the block and then load it out to get it out of the downtown.
Right.
So the property owners do generally keep the sidewalks pretty clear. I think if you've been downtown, you find that it's usually pretty good. It's just when we need that little extra help to make sure that people can access the parking that we get more involved.
Well, I'm not opposed. I just want to think about what it means to have something permanently affixed. I mean, what are the structures and what would they be? So the staff could come back with more information about that. I'd like to know.
And Mr. Stoneback, do you have a comment?
Good evening, Dave Stone, Public Works Director. In the downtown area, the Public Works Department does make a courtesy pass of clearing the sidewalks of snow. We do that because we find that there's a lot of foot traffic down there and people trying to get on the train. So we do make one pass, and we will clear the sidewalk about a 4-foot wide width. And then we leave the rest to the storefront owners and things like that to shovel the rest of the snow, which some of them do and some of them don't. It would be my opinion, though, if they have an outside cafe out there at that time, they're going to be clearing the snow for their own customers to make sure that it's safe. So I just did want to express that we do make a courtesy pass to try to get the snow off to allow the commuters to get to the train station.
Great, thank you. Alderman Fisk?
I just wanted to add one thing. I don't think there are going to be very many requests to do this, just because of the cost of people are going to have to commit to restore. I'm imagining that the permit for a year-round cafe will be higher than for a seasonal cafe. I just don't think there's going to be that many requests. I've only heard of 2, I think, so far. And the other problem that we have, I was talking with Johanna about this the other day, is that sometimes a restaurant will take it upon themselves to design or install something on a temporary basis that looks terrible. And this way we have a little bit more control over the design and placement than we do now.
And I would like us to address sort of the aesthetics of what these would look like. And in particular, I think we should take a look at what they have at Farmhouse right now. They have like a 5-foot fence on both sides. So when we talk about, keeping it obstruction-free in terms of pedestrians, I think visual unobstruction would be good as well.
And I believe they've been notified that that is not part of their approved sidewalk cafe, so they've taken some liberties.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the committee, and are there other parts of this that you'd like our comments on?
Well, I guess the key piece are the items 1 through 13. If these are some of the staff suggestions based on what the Public Works Department and the Law Department and Community Development have talked about, we can make a note of increasing our design review of this prior to council. But if there's anything else that jumps out that needs further discussion or description or shouldn't be on this list, then we can otherwise we can take this list and develop an application and a program and code amendments.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good list. Anybody have anything to add to that list? Okay, then I think we'll look forward to an update when you have it ready. And then there was a second part that you wanted our thoughts about. This was direction on code amendments to the liquor code that would permit service of liquor on sidewalk cafes for establishments that are considered type 2 restaurants. And I'm putting that open to the committee for discussion. Alderman Fisk.
Johanna, could you just remind us of what we had approved for Starbucks on Sherman? I know that they stopped doing that, but we were allowing them to serve wine, I believe.
Yeah, beer and wine, but type 2s can't serve outside. They can't be on the patio on a sidewalk cafe.
Right, but we did allow a liquor license or a beer and wine license.
Sure, to a coffee shop.
To a coffee shop.
But they were considered a type 2, and our liquor code doesn't permit that to be taken out onto the cafe, onto the patio.
Right. So what's the difference? What are we?
Good evening, Michelle Mason, Cup City Attorney. The difference is that this type of establishment doesn't have servers, so there's no individual going to check IDs, to making sure that no other individuals have joined the patio, have joined their friends while they're having a drink. It's just a lot harder to control, just given the nature of the business. It's much more casual, and therefore it opens up opportunities, and so we raise this as a concern.
But one of the possibilities would be that we would require this type 2 restaurant that wanted to serve alcohol to have a server actually
Correct.
take it out to the table.
That would be part
That would be
of
a
the requirements,
requirement.
correct.
Thoughts from the committee? Alderman Rainey?
But that wouldn't be a type 2 if you're being served, would it?
Well, just for the part, just service for the sidewalk cafe part, and no disposable paper plates and things. I'm not sensing a great groundswell of enthusiasm here.
Yeah.
Alderman Nguyen.
Well, have we had, besides Starbucks, have we had any other of our type 2s? Which other of our type 2 restaurants have liquor licenses?
Is Chipotle type 2?
Chipotle's?
I think they sell beer, right?
Okay. All right. Have they requested, are they interested in this?
Chipotle?
Yeah.
For anybody.
Or any of the others?
You know, I in terms of being able to serve alcohol on the sidewalk cafe, I think we're pretty. I'll let the law department speak to this, but I think people are pretty clear on their liquor licenses of
Right.
what they're allowed to, and anecdotally, I've been in some establishments and seen the person who's ringing up your orders to say, if you're going to have that beer, it has to stay inside, and there's always this look of oh, okay, I get it, but it's a little awkward, but the restaurants do it.
What's the will of the committee here?
I guess I'm not understanding what we're afraid of. If we have an outside server, what are we afraid of?
Oh, I think if we require an outside server, I don't have problems with that.
Not a problem with that?
No.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
No.
All right. So I think we're saying develop an ordinance for us to look at that would allow a type 2 restaurant with a sidewalk cafe to have a server serve alcohol outside. Okay. Any other thoughts about either of these items, or any items for any communications from staff?
Just a reminder to take that survey. Public benefits.
Okay. All right. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.